Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, depending on which part of the world you're in. It's a great pleasure to welcome you to this incredibly timely and very important webinar on the human rights situation in Myanmar or Burma. My name is Benedict Rogers. I'm the Senior Analyst for East Asia at CSW. I've been working on Myanmar for 20 years or more, travelled more than 50 times to the country and its borders. It's a horrific time, as we all know, for the country, and it's really tragic to see what's been happening. But this is a great opportunity to highlight the situation and to hear from a number of real experts on both the situation and what the international community should do in response. It's a pleasure also to co-host this webinar with the Burma Human Rights Network, and great to have Soe Myint from that organization on our panel. We are privileged to have a really excellent panel. It's a delight to welcome the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights in Myanmar, Tom Andrews. I know this is a very busy time for you, and so we're really grateful to you for making time to be with us. And we have a panel that includes the Minister for International Cooperation of the National Unity Government, Dr. Sasa, Huanyn Phuenthon, a very experienced campaigner for Burma, Myanmar, and Soe Myint from, as I've mentioned, from the Burma Human Rights Network, and also really courageously Kin Sandar, who's an activist from Myanmar, is also joining us, and I will turn to them in a few moments. Just a couple of very quick housekeeping points. When we come to the Q&A, I will be asking some questions to our panelists, but there's certainly the opportunity for those of you who are attending this to send questions in the chat function. And for representatives of member states who are with us, if you want to ask your question orally, there's the option to do that, and you can indicate to do that. If you want to send it in writing, I will read out the questions from the chat function. And so let me simply say that the situation in Myanmar since the coup on the 1st of February has turned into a real human rights and humanitarian crisis. More than, I just looked today at the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners figures, more than 8,000 people arrested, almost 6,500 people in prison at the moment, nearly 2,000 people facing arrest warrants, and well over 1,000 people who have been killed. There is, of course, one of the issues of great topicality at the moment is the question of the credentials of the Myanmar ambassador to the United Nations, who courageously spoke out against the coup and has joined the National Unity Government, Jaw Tun. And, of course, the Human Rights Council is actively looking at these issues. And on that note, it's therefore a great pleasure to welcome again Tom Andrews, the Special Rapporteur, to give some opening remarks. Tom, unfortunately, isn't able to stay with us for the entire webinar for very understandable reasons. So he will speak now, and then we'll go to our panelists with a Q&A format. Tom Andrews, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ben, and thank you, Christian Solidarity Worldwide and Burma Human Rights Network, for the important work that you do and for hosting this important and very timely session, and for the invitation and opportunity to join you. It really is an honor to be part of a discussion about Myanmar and the challenges ahead. Next week, I will have the privilege of addressing the Human Rights Council, and I will tell them what each of you know only too well, that since my last report, conditions in Myanmar have worsened. The number of people murdered, tortured, arbitrarily detained, or forcibly displaced by the junta continue to rise, as do the systematic attacks on fundamental rights. And just when you think the junta's tactics could not become any more despicable, they are now taking more and more family members hostage, including very young children, when its forces are unable to find those without standing arrest warrants. But the hosts, panelists, and I am sure that most participants are fully aware of this. I know because I've had the privilege of working with and learning from so many of you, and I am deeply grateful for all that you do, including all of the ways that you help me to do my job. I believe that one of the most critical challenges ahead, particularly with the plague lights of international media attention largely turned off of Myanmar, is that the world knows the truth about Myanmar, and that the governments know that Myanmar matters, and that it is critical that the international community not only make statements, but take action. When I last addressed the Human Rights Council, I said that future generations may look back upon this moment and ask, did the people and nations of the world do all that they reasonably could to help the people of Myanmar in their hour of great peril and need? I told the council that I was afraid that the honest answer to that question was no, that the international community was failing the people of Myanmar. I deeply regret to say that in my view, this reality has not changed. So given this reality, how can we meet the challenges ahead? Well, first and foremost, the people of Myanmar continue to exhibit extraordinary courage and tenacity and commitment to do whatever it takes to save their country. I have been deeply honored to speak with and learn from them. Many take extraordinary risks to provide me with what informs my reports and recommendations to the United Nations. The fate of Myanmar is in their hands, but to succeed, they need a greater level of support from the international community, and they need it before it's too late. Many have lost hope that the help that is needed will not be forthcoming. So we have seen the formation of local defense forces, and the National Unity Government has responded by declaring war on the junta and its military. I understand these actions, but clearly on this course, the junta will continue its use of grossly disproportionate force, and more innocent people will be killed or injured, including the very young. It is why the international community must make Myanmar a priority and take serious, sustained action to address a crisis that can easily become exponentially worse. And it means that all human rights advocates, all who believe in justice, all who care deeply about those who are under siege, even as we speak today, all of us work together to not only provide information and analysis about the horror being inflicted upon the people of Myanmar, but engage governments, the media, religious communities, civic organizations, community leaders, and others about the need to take meaningful, coordinated, strategic action that will undermine the capacity of the military junta to continue its assaults. We need all who care to act together like never before, so that we can most effectively inform and encourage nations who care to work together strategically on actions that will truly make a difference. Now, ideally, coordinated action would be done through the United Nations Security Council. But if that is not possible, and at least for now it is not, then those nations who are willing to take such action should do so. And they can do so by working as a strategic coalition with targeted strategic action that will most effectively undermine the capacity of the junta to continue to hold the nation hostage. This includes sustained economic sanctions that are focused on the junta's revenue streams, an embargo of weapons and dual-use technology, diplomatic pressure that includes a refusal to recognize the junta as legitimate precisely because they are not, and a willingness to recognize and engage the National Unity Government as a critically important partner in this effort. Now, some governments have expressed concern over the National Unity Government's recent declaration of war and reiterated calls for a cessation of violence in Myanmar. I fully support a cessation of violence, but the question is how the violence will be stopped, what it will take for the military junta to end its relentless attacks on the people of Myanmar and its military occupation of a nation. While words of concern by government officials are fine, what the people of Myanmar desperately need and deserve is action. And the fact is that governments who have expressed support for human rights, justice, and democracy in Myanmar have yet to do all that they can do and should do. They have yet to exercise all viable options to stand with and support the people of Myanmar in their desperate hour of need. Our mission, therefore, as human rights advocates is clear: to use every asset at our disposal to demand justice and human rights for the people of Myanmar, to call for meaningful, sustained action from the international community, to work together and support one another and coordinate our efforts together however it's possible and whenever it's possible. And that most of all, we support and work in collaboration with our colleagues in Myanmar who are on the front lines fighting for justice and human rights and working so tirelessly to stop an illegal military junta's carnage, brutality, and relentless assault on the people of Myanmar. Now more than ever, let us summon the courage of the people of Myanmar and do everything in our power to demand and secure the level of support from the international community that the people of Myanmar need and deserve. Time is short and the stakes could not be higher. Thank you for all that you do, and thank you for the opportunity to join you today.
Well, Special Rapporteur Tom Andrews, thank you so much, both for those remarks and for the energetic and powerful way in which you're working in your role to both inform the United Nations and to mobilize and call the UN to action and its member states to action. And the recommendations that you set out there are recommendations that we in CSW very much share. I summed up our calls for action with one phrase, that the international community should be trying to cut the lifeline to the military regime and provide a lifeline to the people of Myanmar. And I hope that captures the essence of what you've just laid out as well. So thank you so much for being with us. I know you'll have to leave us at some point. Please leave us whenever you need to. If you're able to stay for a few more minutes, that's great. But thank you for all you do, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks so much.
So we'll now go into a panel discussion. And let me just briefly introduce our panelists again with a little bit more detail. I gave them a quick introduction at the beginning, but we're really delighted to be joined firstly by my very good friend over many years, Dr. Sasa. Dr. Sasa, as I said at the beginning, is now the NUG's Union Minister of International Cooperation and their spokesperson, was initially appointed by the CRPH, the body of elected parliamentarians who were elected last November, as their special envoy to the United Nations. So it's extremely appropriate to have Dr. Sasa in this discussion at the United Nations. And Sasa is a medical doctor by background and, as I say, an old friend of mine. I'm delighted also to welcome another good friend of mine, Humanitarian, who is the Senior Advocacy Officer for Burma Campaign UK, previously worked as well with Amnesty International, and she's the daughter of Soe Myint, who has been sentenced once again to prison after already having served many years in jail in the past. So Wayne, thank you so much for being with us. Jo Win, another good friend of mine, who is the founder and executive director of the Burma Human Rights Network, and also spokesperson for the Myanmar Muslim Multi-Ethnic Consultative Committee. And he does so much to bring, with his team at BHON, to bring the truth of what's happening in Myanmar or Burma to the international community's attention. And a special thank you once again to Kin Sandar, who is an activist, a member of the General Strike Coordination body in Myanmar, and is her joining us today is particularly courageous. So let me start with a first question, which I won't put every question to every panelist. I'll direct them to some of you. So an opening question, which perhaps Wayne In, you might like to start on, Kin Sandar and Jo Win to add to. What do you perceive to be some of the biggest human rights challenges facing particularly religious and ethnic minorities in Myanmar since the 1st of February coup? Wayne In, do you want to kick off?
Thank you very much, Ben, and thank you very much for having me here. Since the military staged the coup on 1st of February, we have seen the brutality and atrocities committed by the Burmese military, and the situation of human rights and humanitarian crisis in the country is getting worse every day. Every day, we see people being arrested and killed. But unfortunately, these situations are nothing new for ethnic minorities in Burma, because it's been going on for many decades. And even in the past 10 years, when we had the reform process in the country, ethnic people in Burma haven't seen any, or didn't have any gain from these reform process. When the military was introducing reforms in city areas and releasing high-profile political prisoners like Aung San Suu Kyi or my dad, ethnic people in their ethnic areas were being attacked by the military every day. They were being displaced by the military attacks. So these people are already in vulnerable situation, and now the situation is getting even worse because the attack continues and the military is escalating their attacks against the ethnic minority. Fighter jets are bombing their villages and their homes. So the number of internally displaced people in the ethnic area is growing every day. And on top of that, we have COVID pandemic. And on top of that, activists from city areas are escaping arrest and joining IDPs in ethnic areas as well. So they have no shelter, they have no medicines or other essentials that they need to survive. So, ethnic people have felt that in the past 10 years, the international community have failed them. And now they are in even more desperate situation. And on top of all the human rights crisis that we have been going on, they need more support than ever. And people in Burma, if we look at it, we're no longer calling for just simple democracy. We are calling for an inclusive model of federal democracy with equal rights, regardless of our ethnicity, religions, or sexual orientation. So that call needs to be supported by the international community, because people inside the country are doing everything they can every day, going out protesting and risking their lives, and they're asking for support. And as the special rapporteur said, the international response has been frustratingly slow. And we were encouraged by the statements of concerns, but we have passed that point now. What we need is actual, concrete, effective action. So we hope that our concerns and our calls are supported by the UN and the international community. And we hope that happens soon, because we are in a desperate situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Win. Kin Sendal, would you like to comment on this question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. For some reason, I would want to open my video. So as Mawine mentioned, that the situation become worse and worse day by day, like killing people, arresting and torturing. And now another strategy military hunter is doing is cutting off internet in some state and regions start from today. So it may lead to serious violation coming on by military junta in other regions like Sakai, Magui, and Bintia, and also an ethnic regions. And they're also using social media to propagandas and to divide like religious minority and ethnic minorities, like as they used before, like a divide and rule strategy. But people in Burma have to be very careful on using social media platform too, and start from that, like heavy weapons and state terrorists will happen soon if we are too late to help Myanmar. So that's my remark on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jo Win.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for giving me opportunity. I would like to go back to a little bit the root cause of the problem, the root cause of all the crisis in Burma. In my understanding, it is if I want to put into one term, it's religious-based ethno-nationalism, which has been an basic ideology that Myanmar political system has been based upon. We must fight against that ideology if you want to establish a genuine democracy and human right and equality for Burma. Because without eliminating this ideology, we can never establish a democratic Burma. So according to BHRN monitoring team, which we receive every updates from my team, um, until today, there has been 1,364 people has been killed so far by the military. These are all peaceful protesters and unarmed civilians. And the extrajudicial killings, disappearances, arresting journalists, arrest of the family members of the suspect, and the arbitrary arrest, the arrest of health workers. Thousands of IDPs are now in Zagain, Chain, and Karenni and Karen states, and the humanitarian aid is unable to reach them because of the blockades. And one of the reasons is because mainly those who are in Zagain and Chain state, difficult to reach any humanitarian aid. So these are people are now, even children are facing flu, and there is no they are facing shortage of medical health cares and food, and so there are thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people are struggling IDPs in jungles in Burma. So their human right violation is being hugely going on, and that ideology behind this, all the religious minorities and everyone is facing today, is this ideology. You must be a Burma Buddhist in order to be accepted as a elite class, or you must be from the military family. So earlier, my colleagues, those who explained about the situation in Burma, just I going to further deeper step, this is a root cause here. So we have to tackle this idea, face this idea, how this idea has been so much strongly established within the within Burma, and there in political society, and also the activist society there. Sometimes we very disturbingly we see this ideology. We need to find the solution to eliminate this idea, or to control this idea, to explain the to replace with the ideology that prove that the grantee the equal rights for the minorities and for the religious minorities. So the human right violation is so far is one of the worst situation we are facing in the history of Burma today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorwin. Let me direct a second question specifically to Dr. Sasa. And this question, Dr. Sasa, is what can the international community do to better support vulnerable groups in Myanmar, Burma, particularly religious and ethnic minorities, human rights defenders, journalists, and others? What role does the United Nations have to play in this regard? Dr. Sasa.
Firstly, thank you very much indeed for having me today, and this opportunity to again represent and speak for our people long suffering. And thank you for the questions. And I just like to begin for say that there's firstly, we are facing genocidal military regime in Myanmar. We are facing everyday crime against humanity and atrocities. And that the suffering, pain, and destructions by the military junta, who have clearly stated, clear and loud to the nation and to the world by declaring war against the people of Myanmar. By doing so, they're using battlefield weapons, not just bombs or guns or fighter jets. Their weapons include disease, torture, forced labor, intimidations, arrest warrants, name it, everything. All those are their weapons. As a result, over the last 6 months, we have received several thousands of emails, which have 150,000 email documenting crime against humanity carried out by the military, and 310,000 video and photos to back up the crime against humanity committed by the military junta. International human rights lawyer currently opening 427 strong cases on behalf of 28,005 victims of the military service violations of human rights. Plus, as you earlier say, we have seen more than 1,088 as we speak, civilian, men, women, and children being killed, slaughtered, and cold blood by the military junta. More than 8,000 people have been arrested illegally. And as this is not new in Myanmar history. Right from 1947, this same type of military killed General Aung San and other 10 martyrs of the nation. And the outburst of violence happened in 1962 and 1972 and 1988, 1997 and 2007 and 2017 and now 2021. This is the repetitions of the crime against humanity and atrocities that has been the history of Myanmar for the last 74 years. These are the same military generals who have begun their act of terrorism against the people of Myanmar right from the beginning of our pre-independence. And as an effort, COVID-19 pandemic is happening. At the same time, the junta military regime in Myanmar murdered at least 27 medical personnel and detained more than 600 medical personnel, and regularly attacking medical facilities and stealing precious medical supplies and occupying our hospitals, our schools, our churches, our community centers, storing a battlefield weapon to attack the people. This is what's happening in our country. If there was no military coup, we could have vaccinated 30% of our populations by now. But the people of Myanmar are being forced to die into COVID-19 under the hands of the military junta. So the point is here, why the international community has been in action, seeing this crime against humanity, atrocities, ethnic cleansings happening again and again in the land of Myanmar. Over 4 months have passed since ASEAN 5 points was reached by consensus, but no results is found on the ground. 2 months since United Nations 76 General Assembly resolution passed on Myanmar, but again, no result was found on the ground. What we see is Min Aung Hlaing and his genocidal military junta forces using ASEAN as a propaganda tool. That's what we see. So now we need COVID-19 vaccination. We need COVID-19 preventions. We need the food. We need the medicines. We need the shuttles. And we are facing triple crisis in Myanmar. The crisis of COVID-19, the surging, and the crisis of humanitarian catastrophe, and the crisis of social, political, instabilities across the country. As we face those crises, we call our international community to act quickly before it's too late. These Minh Aung Hlaing and his genocidal military forces are determined to kill. And the violence we have seen has been widespread and systematic. How many dead bodies we need to see from COVID-19 crisis? How many dead bodies the world need to see from these bloody military junta's hands? How many dead bodies the world need to see from this humanitarian crisis? As we speak, 2.4 million people of Myanmar are being displaced and became homeless because of the atrocities of the military junta in Myanmar. As we speak, 6.4 million people of Myanmar have no food to eat. As we speak, 27 million people of Myanmar are being forced to live under extreme poverty. As we speak now, more than half population of my country could be affected by COVID-19 in the region. Myanmar is becoming a new breeding ground for new variants of COVID-19. It's threatening not only the country, but also the region and globally. So when would the world international community act quickly and swiftly? Otherwise, many bloodbaths days are ahead, because the people of Myanmar were being forced to defend themselves from being killed or destroyed by these military junta, who are using battlefield weapons like a bomb, a guns, and fighter jets from Russia and China to kill, destroy, cause maximum deaths. And the world has to end. We have to cut off all the income, the cash flow to military junta. We have to cut off all the weapons flows to military junta. The international community must ensure no fly zone above Myanmar. It's important. It's all to prevent another genocide in Myanmar from happening again in our land. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sasa. A question that I'm going to open for the whole panel, or for anyone on the panel that would like to comment on it, but I'll start with you, Dr. Sasa, because you've already highlighted this issue. You described the terrible humanitarian crisis for the country, both with COVID and with displacement and wider health and poverty challenges. In your view, what are the main obstacles to humanitarian access to Myanmar following the coup, and what measures could be put in place by the international community to facilitate access to those who most need humanitarian help, whether that's COVID vaccines or displacement? Dr. Sasa, if you'd like to respond to that question first, and then I'll come to others on the panel who may like to comment as well.
Thank you, Ben. I mean, COVID-19 does not respect for the border. It does not respect for political affiliation. It does not speak the language. And now we are talking about the deaths could be from COVID-19 from 40,000 people to 400,000 people. That's the level that we are talking about. And if, in fact, if there was no military coup in February, we have ordered and give the money to India vaccine program. 30 million dosage of vaccines. Our aim was to vaccinate our people by April of this year. A long time ago. And in fact, Myanmar was the first country that started COVID-19 vaccination program. And now this military junta, they are not just taking away our democracy, our freedom, and our elections by stealing it, by killing the people of Myanmar, by instigating violence, and taking the hostage, the whole nation into hostage for the last 8 months. But they also killed all of the vaccination rollout program of Myanmar against COVID-19. This is the point. The secondly, as a result, COVID-19 surge in Myanmar and humanitarian catastrophe in Myanmar, and this chaos in Myanmar, all this crisis, now our economy is collapsing to the ground, with the ground. No education service to the children of Myanmar. No healthcare services. There's no basic services to the people of Myanmar for the last 8 months. All what we have seen every day, in a day there's 24 hours and 7 days a week. For the last 8 months, what we saw was atrocities, crime against humanity, violence, and the line in cemetery crimination from COVID-19 deaths. The queue in oxygen. Just imagine, that's the nation where we are right now. Who is responsible for this? It's the military junta is directly responsible for all these deaths and destructions and these triple crises. They are responsible for it. How we will solve this problem? Number one, international community must not only speak the words of the statement. It's time for actions. We need actions. We need COVID-19 vaccination, not just only vaccination, but more importantly, attack on medical personnel in Myanmar has to stop. It's unacceptable. Right from the beginning, when COVID-19 hit the world, UN Security Council has passed a resolution called 2565, call for global ceasefire. When the rest of the world are attacking COVID-19 and protecting the world, human being in the world from COVID-19. In Myanmar, it's opposite. The military junta attacking medical personnel is unacceptable. It's utterly unacceptable. It's inhuman. It's beyond of crime against humanity. It's beyond of that. So what we have to do, we need to reassure the protections and the security for our brave men and women on the ground who are attacking COVID-19. It's unacceptable. Attack on medical personnel is unacceptable. So we are not only asking COVID-19 vaccination, but there has to be security measure, protection measure for our aid workers and our medical personnel and NGOs, international agencies. They are working around the clock to provide a lifeline to the people of Myanmar. And we need the money for food, shuttles, and as medicines, vaccinations, which are the most important thing right now. But we also need the military junta in Myanmar immediately stop attacking on humanitarian. There's something called humanitarian law. There's something called international human rights law. There's something called Geneva Conventions. That is the whole we have to buy. It seems Minh Aung Hlaing and his genocidal military men in uniform have no idea about what is human rights, with international humanitarian law. So we all need to be abide that. And so to conclude, international community must take a strong and coordinated action against the military junta in Myanmar and hold them accountable for act of terrorism against civilian people. At the same time, international community must come together, coordinate humanitarian effort to deliver to the people of Myanmar, and UN Security Council must assure security measure by passing the resolution to make sure that no, again, medical personnel are attacked.
Thank you, Dr. Sasa. I'd like to open this same question to the rest of the panel before we move on to another question. So maybe Kinsanda, Wayne In, and Join, if you have anything you would like to add on this point of the obstacles to humanitarian access and what can be done to get humanitarian assistance to those who need it. The floor is yours. Kinsanda first.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question to UN and other UN mechanism about effort on Myanmar. Like there are UN agencies and other agencies still in Myanmar. I would like to see more effort. Like for example, ICRC, they can do more than that, but we don't see much on the ground. So we hope those UN agency would work and put effort more than now. And another thing is that humanitarian access can go through borders like EE or EHO, ethnic health organization, and also international community can talk to NUG. NUG has also health ministries about vaccine and also humanitarian ministries. So um, uh, I think international community can work on that, but still there are limitations because the time is now in coup, and so there might not be full access to that. So the only thing we can do is to lead Myanmar to the path of democracy, so that all people can enjoy humanitarian access and medical care and healthcare and other things. So I would like to ask international community to recognize NUG and support NUG's plan so that people can have access to those humanitarian access. That is the only way to take those access. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wayne In, anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Ben. I think for humanitarian access, I think it should go through borders, because ethnic armed organizations and CSO working on the ground, they are very experienced. They have their own structure and they know the situation more than anyone. So I think international community need to find a cross-border aid mechanism and do that, rather than waiting or deciding, or should we go through the military or not, because we shouldn't go through the military. They're the one causing these humanitarian crises in the country, and they are the one blocking the aid for people who are in need. So I think the international community and also international organization and NGOs, they need to be much more flexible when it comes to funding the CSO and grassroots organizations on the ground, and work with trust, because they are the one working on the ground. They know the situation very well, and you need to put trust in them. And without working with these people, I don't know how the humanitarian aid can be delivered. So cross-border aid mechanism is the first thing to start.
Thank you, Wayne In. And Jolwyn? I think you need to unmute, Jolwyn.
Yeah, thank you. I think it is one of the military strategy, four-cut strategy, the deprivation of medicines and food and supplies. So they are the one who, this is what they normally do with every time with the, you can see this is the same pattern you can see in ethnic control area, the way they have, conducted. So now I think the NUG government has a very well position to take this lead on the humanitarian aid, because you see that there are doctors, there are many doctors, in the medical professionals. They are following NUGs, and they're involved in CDM, and they also, like Dr. Zoe So, who has been, leading on the COVID-19 situation in Burma. So people like him and people like the government and the NUG has a well position to take lead in this. Of course, EAO's areas, the ethnic arms group control areas, also one of the key strategical locations where international aid could arrive. But also the cross-border aid is also, neighboring countries. That's how international community need to talk to them and convince them to open up their border for on humanitarian ground. Uh, this is a very important point, that millions of lives now at the stake because of the COVID-19 situation, as well as because of the military. As you see, last couple of months, that was, as Dr. Sasa earlier explained, that time was extremely dangerous for people of Burma. Every day we lost someone from our families, from our relatives, from our neighbors. You know, the military has, they what forget about the, they're going to help people. They are arresting the doctors. They were detaining the doctors and medical professionals, those who are, involved in CDM, and then they come back, they try to help the people. They've been trapped. They've been called, they fake phone call and then arrested for some medical professional in a few areas. So that the way they try to, disrupt the situation and capitalizing the situation. So even the worst scenario is, we people has been queuing for the oxygens, and they've been arrested. So this is all, we have people in Burma have faced like that, and this shouldn't happen. Because of the military, they only care for their power and their authorities, and to, so we must, international community, there is an international law, as Dr. Sasa earlier said. There is in humanitarian law, we have to practice, or we have to, international community need to demand from the military or all the parties in Burma, because humanitarian aid is something nobody can block, nobody can deny that. That's a hugely important matters. International community must start it from that point, and start helping the people. Now thousands of children in Karen states, in Chin state, in Zagain, they are facing seasonal flu. They don't have enough medical medicines or doctors. So these innocent children, they shouldn't suffer what they are suffering now. It is our duty, the duty for all mankind here. We have to stand up for them, and we need to do our best to. And this is the opportunity for international community, especially UN member states. We need to put pressure. We need to do something. This is not the time for concern and publishing a statement is gone now. It's over now. This is a time of action. The people live, millions of lives are at the stake now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jo Win. We come now to the last question in this format before we open it up to questions from our audience and participants. And this is an important question, which I'm going to direct first to Dr. Sasa and then to Jo Win to comment on. Challenges for Myanmar are not only found within the country of Myanmar. There are also growing concerns about the military regime's attempts to legitimize its control of Myanmar, particularly through the question of accreditation at the United Nations. And of course, today the Credentials Committee will be announced, and we'll know who's on that committee and what the process is from there on. But in your view, what are the main challenges at the Credentials Committee likely to be, and indeed at the General Assembly, on this question of who is accredited, and what's the main scenario, outcome, and potential consequences once the question of credentials has been decided. So Dr. Sasa first and then Jo-Win.
Thank you, Ben. Firstly, legitimacy is not made by United Nations. It comes from the people of Myanmar. That is, the origination of legitimacy is from the people of Myanmar. In the way the people of Myanmar has given us the mandate to represent them and the country. That is clear and loud. Secondly, the military junta in Myanmar are, number one, all they have done from 1st of February till today is they have just killed 1,088 men and women and children. How can that represent the people of Myanmar in international stage? The killer cannot be a representative to us. That is not going to be normalized or accepted. Secondly, all they have done from 1st of February till today is a crime against humanity, atrocities, and pain and suffering, death, destructions. That is not who we are. And we'll never allow this murderous regime to represent the people and the country of Myanmar. That's clear. Secondly, the scenario can be, number one, this military junta will be blocked to go inside of the United Nations to represent the people and the country of Myanmar. That is the first scenario. There's almost 100% sure that that will not happen. That will happen. That these military junta will be blocked, will not be allowed to represent us ever, never. Second scenario is, as we are, facts and true, so representative of the people of Myanmar, the country, national unity government. It's the first time in the history of Myanmar that we have a national unity government, which comprises of elected member of parliament by the people of Myanmar, for the people of Myanmar, and our ethnic arms organizations, and grassroots civil society organizations, and political parties, ethnic leaders. Yeah, we are inclusive, as inclusive possible in NUG. And international community must see this opportunity. It's the only way to end and stop this military junta dictatorship, military dictatorship that has ruined the life of the people of Myanmar and the country for the last 74 years. It's the best time to end this military dictatorship in Myanmar once for all, and build a right federal democratic constitution of Myanmar that based on federal democratic principles. The constitution there will be long for the people of Myanmar, for many generations to come, and begin to build federal democratic union of Myanmar for all the people of Myanmar, regardless of race, religious, culture, ethnicities, and background, and gender. It's the best chance by United Nations to help and support that happen for many generations to come. That is second scenario. And the third scenario, and the other most likely scenario, is Soe Myint will continue as Myanmar representative of Myanmar to United Nations. So whatever happened mutual continuation and NUG acceptance is almost both scenario we win. The people of Myanmar win. That is what can happen. So I have also made a clear line here under the public international law, why NUG met all the criteria and complies with. I just like to go a little bit through these few minutes, if you allow me, please. Here, first is de facto control over territory of Myanmar. And NUG complies with relevant criteria. NUG control the legislative and administrative work over most of Myanmar's territory. Legislative. 11 states and regional assemblies out of 14 have endorsed the NUG as legitimate government of Myanmar. NUG has successfully installed township level civilian administration across Myanmar territory, ensuring that amenities like water and electricity continue to run in the regions that we operate. And NUG has adopted leading role in relation to COVID-19 pandemic, and NUG formed the People's Defense Force to protect the people of Myanmar from being attacked and violence instigated by the military. Ethnic control administration provide public services to millions of people of Myanmar. NUG include direct and indirect representation of multiple leaders of such administrations, whereas the military genocide and military junta, however, does not comply with the same criteria. Despite its orchestrated program of armed violence against civilians and democratic institutions, the military has no managed access to de facto control over Myanmar territory. Over 400,000 civil servants continue to refuse to work after 7 months of military failed coup, including tax collectors, teachers, doctors, esteemed joint protests opposed the military. And defections from military have drastically grown, and hospital, banks, schools, and transportation service, multiple departments and other governmental offices and agencies are failing to function, leading to the back-end and current crisis, healthcare disasters, another administrative shutdown. And since the military systematic attack against the people of Myanmar started 1st February, the only thing that flourished in Myanmar is chaos. So I have made here 5 points. I'm not going to read all. I'll be posting this in my social media after this. So what I'm saying is that we have met with all the criteria in NUG according to international public law. And we are, regardless of United Nations recognize us or not, our recognition came from the people of Myanmar. We will continue to represent the people of Myanmar and the country of Myanmar in everything we can. We will never surrender. We will never give up. We will never stop. So we will continue. That means our ambassador, Ucho Mutu, will continue as our ambassador to international community, United Nations. We, NUG, will continue to defend democracy and freedom in Myanmar in the face of this genocidal military junta. No matter how long it takes, no matter how deep we go, we will continue. We will never surrender or give up. That is our commitment to our country and the people.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sasa. Join, if you could briefly add your thoughts on this question, and then we're almost into the final 15 minutes where we'd like to get to some of the audience questions. So, but over to you.
Yeah, first of all, this is the struggle. We need to understand what's going on in Burma. It's not just only the military coup or not just fighting, struggling, the power struggle between two entities. This is a very much a corrupted, murderous, ruthless regime, authoritarian regime against the democratic values, against the civilizations, against the peaceful protesters against the peace-loving people. And look at the history in Burma. Nobody can count exactly how many people the Burmese military has been killed in these decades. Since the beginning, they've just been killing, right? They are not building the country, they are destroying the country. And look at the history of Burma economic data. Every single data will direct you that direction. That military has been destroying a destructive force, destructive power within the country. This need to be eliminated, or this need to be controlled. Otherwise, we will have another chaos and failed state within this region, and there will be so many disasters like drug trafficking and refugee uh, migrations of peoples to neighboring countries because of the civil war, because of the oppression. And you see so far within Burma right now, within this couple of few months, there are hundreds of thousands of IDPs are already stuck. Like especially my concern is with people in Kachin, people in Chin and Zagain state, because they don't receive the border aid. They don't receive any kind of humanitarian aid. India is on the other side. They are not allowing any aid to go through. So this is very shame for we should allow all the humanitarian aid from Thailand, from China, from India, from every part of the world, because this we are not talking about war, we are talking about to save the human life. So in that case, I would like to point out something very important point for the credential issues. There are three things the international community need to bear in mind on regard to Burmese military. First of all, this is the military, illegitimate military that overthrown a democratically elected government. So how come we are, we're going to support this military? No. And the second thing is, this is the military from the day one. They have been killing, torturing, raping women, destroying villages. If you name all kind of atrocities, scorched earth, folk cuts, all things are there. They've been practicing against the minorities. And the third thing, this is the same military, the same general who committed genocide against the Rohingya Muslim in 2017, according to UN fact-finding mission. So UN and other member state must be, understand that. How could this is a founding principle of UN to save the people life, not allowing to use that platform a mass murderer to commit genocide, to commit crime against humanity. And according to BHR and analysis, we have published a report in a couple of months ago on 28th July. The military has been committed crime against humanity. There are clearly all the data and all the evidence are directing us that Burmese military has been committing crime against humanity. So how can we look at them? They have already committed genocide. You tick all the box of the crime they, you name it, all the crime they have committed, and there is no any consequences for them to committing those crimes. So this is a time now for international community to stand up with the people of Burma, 55 million of people of Burma. We are looking at you. We are waiting at you. We people of Burma is, those who are from morning to night. Nobody, the mothers, they don't know whether their children will come back today or not. The way that the arbitrary arrest and their disappearances, they are all happening every part of Burma every day. We are facing now. So we are facing one of the most ruthless and the most heinous military regime we are facing. And on the other hand, people have without any support, without any defense, and we are standing on our own. So this is the most important event in the history of Burma. We are facing one of the highest rates of human rights violation and the atrocities across Burma, and nobody knows, tomorrow we'll see, or especially youth now, they're targeting on youth, and now you see, from today there are many areas they cut down the internet connections, and during the pandemic, it is important that you have all the resources and facilities to counter the pandemic and to save people's life, but it is not happening in Burma. So we have a choice now, right? We have a choice. I understand that international community, the UN mechanisms and UN in the culture and traditions in UN, the state always has to look after their national interests. But this is beyond that. The reason this is a humanity. We are talking about the humanity. We are not talking about the one state interest or the, this is a much bigger than that. So we must not allow, we must not breach the founding principle of UN and violating the UN Charter and allowing this military to continue the crime against humanity and genocide in Burma. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jolwyn. We're going to go now into the final 10 minutes or so of questions. My colleague from CSW has kindly been helping me monitoring the questions and just helping to filter them to me. Just to say, if there are representatives of member states here, if you prefer to ask your question orally, please let my colleague know and we can unmute you and enable you to do so. But generally, we'll go with the questions that have come in from the chat. But before we do that, I wonder if I could direct a question of my own, perhaps to Kin Sanda. Just very briefly, Kin Sanda, I wonder if you could comment on what is the situation for civil society and independent media in Myanmar now. Those are two areas we haven't touched on very much. So I just wonder if you could give us a couple of minutes on that issue, and then we'll go into the other remaining questions.
Thank you, Raj. The situation of civil societies and media is worse than ever, and most of the journalists being arrested and other are like they have to hide out and they cannot take any news on the street with press or obviously, and they have to take the news very serious way. For civil societies the military junta is checking the list of civil society they being engaged, so they are checking their office. So most of the civil society organizers they couldn't work and they couldn't extend their contract and sort of things. And not only those, but also like voluntary groups, like volunteer groups, like blood donation groups, that is organically formed by the township youth group or township based civil society. They cannot stand up on that in COVID-19 situation that wave last month, and there are some youth group, volunteering group, like they are queuing for oxygen tent to the positive patient, and they've been arrested by helping and by doing volunteer. So, and the ambulance, they cannot go to help people like military hunters stop and like took away those ambulance too. That's serious situation happened. But um to add on that point, like young people, as Gojoy mentioned, young people on the ground, they never give up, and they already decide that this is the last time to root out the military hunter, to fight to them. Um, and we believe that we will win because at this time we have 50 million people unite. Like we unite like not only Burma but also ethnic area this time, and we unite majority or minority. We unite men or women. We unite youth or older, like generation. We unite LGBTs, whether your identity or not, whether you're religious or you're not. We have very clear demand that we will root out this time, whether international community help or not, whether ASEAN facilitate or not, whether UN do their work or not, or we this time we will do our best. We will fight our own battle to win this military junta. That's our determination of this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kin Sanda. I'll go into the questions now, and because of time, I'll just direct questions to probably one or at most two members of the panel because we're very short of time. So this question is one that, if we had more time, I'm sure all of you would have something to say on, but I'm going to direct it to Wei Nin. Wei Nin, you've had a lot of experience dealing with the international media, and the question that's been asked, and it's one I've often wondered as well in the last few months, why is the world's press not giving the crisis in Myanmar more attention? Why is it so silent, and what can be done to get its attention?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. I understand that there are so many things going on around the world, so many crises. Just look at Afghanistan and, other countries as well. So on a professional level, I understand that the media can't focus on Burma forever, but on a personal level, it pains my heart because the situation in the country is getting worse every day. People are dying every day, but no one is, sometimes, they don't even know these things are happening anymore. They thought it's done now. They accepted the fact that Burma has to be under the military dictatorship again, but the reality is we haven't. Like Mackenzie say, that we are still fighting and resisting against the military dictatorship. And events like this is very important because we are raising awareness. We need to keep talking about it, and we need to keep raising awareness. Not only talking about it, because there are so many human rights organizations working on Burma, and they are already identifying what kind of action the international community can do. And these UN and international community, there are so many things they can do, but frustratingly, they haven't done enough. So it's our job to keep talking, keep pushing, and like the special rapporteur said, main action is cut the revenues, cut the arms, and hold the military accountable. These are the things, if not the UN Security Council can't do as a whole, member states can work with like-minded states and take these actions. And we want to see that happening, and we need to keep talking, and we need the international community to take effective action.
Thank you very much. A question which I'm going to put to Kin Sunda. How do you think the international community, or indeed groups inside the country, can plan for protection for those who are trying to deliver humanitarian assistance in different parts of the country?
Sorry, could you please repeat again?
Sure. What do you think can be done to plan for the protection of those who are trying to distribute humanitarian assistance in the country?
So as I mentioned, through the borders, and Marwin also mentioned, and there is Humanitarian Ministry, I think Social Welfare Ministry of NUG, and there are ethnic area EHO. They have humanitarian sectors. So through borders, right now, I think that we can do, and NUG, they have also planned to do with that. And so I think international community talk to NUG and ethnic organization to help through borders. And of course, like Kujoy mentioned, that their neighbor states like Thai, India, and other neighboring countries should help to do so. I think that's the only right thing to do. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take two last questions because we're almost out of time. I'm going to give the penultimate question to Jo Win, and then several questions have come in for Dr. Sasa. We probably can't get to all of them, but I'll try to combine them to give Dr. Sasa the final word. But Jo Win, just very briefly, what do you think the United Nations should do when some member states, such as the obvious one, China or Russia, support the military in Myanmar or Burma?
You see, Ben, this is the United Nations is the place where all world countries, they send their best diplomats to serve their interests. So, of course, the nation, they look for they prioritize for their national interests. But it is important that these nations, especially P5 countries, they should not, it is their responsibility, the most responsibility for them is to not allow any criminal regime to hijack a country and commit a genocide, a crime against humanity. And they cannot close their eyes for the benefit, for the interest, for their only national interest. That is a very important principle they must follow. Also, I have believed that in the past 30, 40 years, whenever there is any credential challenges happen in UN, UNGA normally support the people's power, people's, people who, they don't support the people who use the force to obtain the power. So I have confidence in UNGA, but also Credential Committee is now, they're doing their best, hopefully. But the most important thing is every nation, single nation, need to understand that people of Burma is, asking you, do not support the military agenda that killing them for day by night. So we need this message to reach to every nation, every delegations in UN and permanent missions to understand, to heard about. Let me echo this voice from the people of Burma, that we don't want you to support to recognize the military that killing us. That is a criminal and ruthless regime. We don't want them to represent our country. We want Uchamoton to continue to maintain as to represent the people of Burma. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Sasa, final question. We're already a couple of minutes over time, so if you could be very brief. But a question regarding the role of ASEAN, which we haven't discussed yet, and their special envoy, the Foreign Minister of Brunei. Has the ASEAN special envoy reached out to the NUG? What more could be done to strengthen the position of ASEAN? And if you have any very brief final concluding remarks before we end, you can add on a few moments in addition to answering that question.
Thank you very much, Ben. Firstly, the eyes of the world are on ASEAN Special Envoy and a huge task. And I have to engage with Special Envoy office and also Special Envoy himself, including United Nations Special Envoy to Myanmar, Christine, and we have made clear to ASEAN Special Envoy that it has to be inclusive engagement. And inclusive means all the stakeholders in Myanmar has to be included in that mission. At the same time, it has to be also inclusive internationally, because international eyes are on ASEAN Special Envoy. It has to come with a time-bound, realistic approach. And we have made, as the people government of Myanmar, we have made clear to ASEAN Special Envoy, we welcome, we open, we stand by to engage in any way that we could to make sure that ASEAN 5 points that the risk assessments are implemented on the ground swiftly. Now 4 months pass, no actions on the ground from that 5 points of ASEAN. So it's all too late now. It's all too late in many ways, because so many people have died. One die is too many for us. We can't allow that happen. So any discussions, any talk about the future of Myanmar must include the people of Myanmar. That is what we have been made clear. And there has to be inclusive strategy, inclusive structure, inclusive engagement. Everything is done has to be inclusive. At the same time, with timetable, because the time is not in our sight. The people are dying to COVID-19 every day. The people are dying to humanitarian catastrophe every day. The people of Myanmar are being dying every day under the hands of this military junta led by Min Aung Hlaing. So that is with our ASEAN Special Envoy. And final concluding remark, what I really like to say is, number one, international community must engage with National Unity Government of Myanmar as a sole representative for the people of Myanmar and the country of Myanmar. It's very, very important. Secondly, international community must acknowledge, support, and engage and recognize us without delay. There should not be any hallucination or hesitation because the time isn't on our side. This is the only way to eradicate and end these crime against humanity, atrocities, ethnic cleansings, this injustice in the country. Once we end this military reign of terror against the people of Myanmar, once and for all, we will write our own constitution by the written by the people of Myanmar, for them, by them, based on federal democratic principles for all the people of Myanmar. And we will begin to build our future, the new future of Myanmar, called Federal Democratic Union of Myanmar for all the people of Myanmar. For us to do that, we need international community to support us as soon as possible. Third point, we need the support from international community is support for humanitarian crisis, support for COVID-19 crisis. Please help us to relieve and save the life from this humanitarian catastrophe and COVID-19 crisis in Myanmar. We need your help. We need the food, we need the shuttles, we need the medicines, we need the vaccinations. And as my colleague have clearly makes clear and loud, it has to be as much as possible border cross aid. We are asking our neighbor to open their border to save the life of the people of Myanmar before it's too late. We also understand that there has to be some practical issue that aid has to come to Yangon. Okay, that's acceptable. So my final conclusion is that we will never give up. We are holding the front lines of freedom and democracy and defending human rights, democracy, and the freedom in the face of genocidal military junta. They have been there, raining on terror against the people of Myanmar, not only today, yesterday, have been there for 74 years. It's too long. We cannot go on another 74 years under the reign of terror against the people of Myanmar by this same military junta. It's a time to end this brutality, cruelty, and this terrorism once for all. We are united together. We'll be united together. We'll never surrender. We'll never give up until freedom is prevailed. Justice is served. Federal Democratic Union of Myanmar is built. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sasa. That's a very inspiring and important way on which to end. You said just now that time is not on our side. That's true in a very profound way for Myanmar. Sadly, it's also true for us in this webinar. I hope participants will understand why I did allow it to go on an extra 10 minutes. If we had many more hours, I'm sure we could have continued talking about these issues and what to do for many hours, but we have to bring things to a close here. Just to say, first of all, that I didn't say this at the beginning, but this webinar has been recorded and it will be released on our social media channels, YouTube, Facebook. So anyone who wants to refer to it, anyone who thinks of other people who weren't able to attend who might be interested in watching it, please feel free to share it widely. And so I think all that remains for me to do is firstly to thank everybody who attended this, who put in questions, who listened to our panel, and I hope that this will have been informative for you, particularly for member states at the UN, but also for interested people around the world. So thank you for attending, and a very big thank you to our very courageous panel, to Kin Sanda, to Wei Nin, Jo Win, and Dr. Sasa. Thank you so much for giving up your time to be with us today. Thank you for your courageous work, and let's continue this struggle remembering, as I said at the beginning, that our objectives should be to cut the lifelines to this illegal military regime and provide lifelines to the people of Myanmar. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone from BHRN, and for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
Thank you.
好呀，米。
ရေးတော့ပုံအောင်ရပြီ